On Masters of Spin this morning, two big names gone as business owners respond to community pressure in Sydney. The Captain Cook Hotel, a famous watering hole near the SCG for more than 100 years, will now be known as the Captain Paddington, while the owners of Coon Cheese have accepted the word is racist, even though it was also the name of a cheesemaker.
Oh, I'm over the moon. As I said, I've been campaigning for several decades. 1999 was the time I took this campaign up.
I've never thought Coon was racist.
Do we rename Sydney? Rename Melbourne? Where do we stop?
Our Masters of Spin this morning are advertising and marketing experts Matthew Bywater and Dee Madigan. Matt, we'll start with you. There's a term that's been given to this by people who object. It's called cancel culture, rather. How do you advise businesses to respond?
Well, it's very difficult. I guess the first thing from a business perspective is know your target market, because it may well be, and this may sound crass to some, it may well be that you should pick a side and go, we decided to debate. Because the case of this, particularly Coon Cheese, is that it's a big brand. There is no easy out for them, especially now that they're no longer an Australian-owned brand. So if you know your target market, you may be able to pick a side and actually get a lot of traction for that. In the case of Coon, I think they're going to have to accept the loss of business, because when you look at people, how they perceive that brand, they've grown up with that brand for so long, for decades and decades and decades, and now it's gone. They're going to have to start again from fresh. They're going to have to accept the loss of business.
Dee, how challenging is that transition in your experience? I mean, an entire rebrand when, as we've just mentioned, that the brands are so well known. How difficult is it? How much money would have to be spent on the rebrand?
A lot, but don't forget they're getting a lot of free media out of it as well. We're talking about it here. And I suspect that maybe they had realised it was probably starting to affect their sales. People were a little uncomfortable about buying a brand called Coon. So I think that they saw that in the long run it might be better to garner good media attention and make the change now. And like with the Captain Cook Hotel, I know there's Facebook polls that say people are against it, but they will have researched their target market, and I guarantee their target market would have wanted the change as well. These things aren't done, without a lot of due process.
And with regard to the Captain Cook Hotel, I mean, they're certainly not turning their back on him. They're actually going to be restoring a sort of epitaph to him and so on. So, they're not turning away, but they have changed the name. We'll move on now to a government department that's under fire for not being politically correct. Sydney Trains has admitted making a mistake by advertising for women only. They say the job ad should have been worded better by encouraging women to apply rather than ruling out men. Dee, what do you think?
18% of Sydney train drivers are female. That's just not enough. Positive discrimination and quotas actually work, but it probably should have said why, or to encourage women to apply rather than say men can't, is probably the better way to do it. Just a little more nuanced on the wording, but their approach to attract more women is 100% correct.
I want to ask you guys about the sign language interpreter at Daniel Andrews' news conferences has, been seen right around the world for this gesture that many people didn't understand. Wheelchair tennis star Dylan Alcott tweeted that he was summing up how so many people feel about the coronavirus, but we're told the gesture is sign language for the word lazy. Dee, the Auslan interpreter has also gained quite a positive following online. Has their introduction at media conferences made us, I guess, all a little more aware, just in general?
Yeah, look, I remember during the floods in Queensland, the one next to Anna Bligh, and it's mesmerising to look at it and to try to think about how you make a word into a sign. And it does make you just a little bit more aware of the difficulties the deaf community face and how important these services are.
Yes, Matt, we did actually invite him onto the show because he's become quite a star in the Twitter sphere. He's doing a very serious job, obviously. What do you make of this? Is it generally positive that we're highlighting the fact that it's so important that we have this service at news conferences?
Yeah, it's great. And it's great for the whole sign language industry. And, when you hit a viral wave, you should ride it. And I think they should take the opportunity, I don't know what the tagline is, when you can't hear us, we'll turn up the volume sort of thing. But there's an opportunity for him to raise more awareness for sign language. And I think it's great.
Yes, all right. Thank you very much to you both. Appreciate it. Well, still to come this morning, the latest warnings and new restrictions as coronavirus spreads wider and hospitals get overwhelmed.
And 1 year to go, the countdown to Tokyo's rescheduled Olympic Games begins.